Good morning, students. Welcome to the online classes by the Department of English. Today, I am here to deal with the topic reported speech. Reported speech is otherwise known as indirect speech. So, you must have learned this topic in your lower classes. Most of the times, we may have to explain what others have spoken to us to someone else. In such cases, we may not often reproduce the exact words of the speaker. Instead, we may do it in a slightly different way. This is what we call as reporting a speech. And when we do that, we call it indirect speech or reported speech. If we give the exact statement spoken by the person, it becomes direct speech, and if we change it into its past tense and then if we state it to a third person, it becomes reported speech. Let us see the two examples written on the board. See here, see the first sentence. Rani says the class begins tomorrow. See here, this word is called as reporting verb and this is called as reporting clause. So here this is in present tense. So when we make this statement into indirect speech, we have to write like this: Rani says that the class begins the next day. Just observe the changes between these two sentences. What's the first thing that we notice? We notice that the quotation marks are removed. The class begins tomorrow. These are the words spoken by Rani, exact words spoken by Rani. Now when we make it into indirect speech, we remove the quotation marks. Then this comma that separates the reporting clause and the reported clause, that's also removed. But you have to connect these two parts of the sentence, and for which you have to introduce a linker. For general statements, we use the linker that. So, Rani says that the class begins, and see the next change, tomorrow becomes the next day. Tomorrow becomes the next day. So, one difference that you can find here is the addition of a linker and the removal of the quotation marks from the direct speech, and the second one is change in the word related to that of time. Now see the next sentence here. In direct speech, or these are the words exactly spoken by Veena. Veena said, I do my homework. And see how we have changed it. Veena said that she did her homework. See here, again the quotation marks are removed. There is the addition of the word that here, and then see I. See, who is I here? It's Veena. So, I became she, the personal pronoun I changed into she. Now, the sentence is in simple present tense. This sentence got converted into simple past tense because direct speech is closer to us, nearer to us, and indirect speech or reported speech often ensures the distance from us. Here, the simple present tense sentence got converted into simple past tense. Do, the past tense is did, and my homework became her homework. Change in this possessive adjective. These are the changes that you find. Now see the difference between these two sentences. Here in this first sentence, it is Rani says, and says is in the present tense. Reporting verb is in the present tense. When reporting verb is in the present tense, there is no change in the tense of the reported clause, which means the tense doesn't change here. The difference that we find is removal of the quotation marks, and this is taken like this. Now here, Veena said. When you say Veena said, this is in the past tense. And when reporting verb is in the past tense, definitely you have to change the tense of the sentence. So, simple present tense sentence became simple past tense. Now, we will see a few more examples with respect to this. Now, see these examples. Sita said, I go to college today. The sentence is in simple present tense, and here the reporting verb is said. So how do you convert this into reported speech? Sita said that she went to college that day. See here the differences. First, removal of quotation marks and this comma, and here we have added the linker that to connect these two parts of the sentence. I became she. Go, the simple present tense form of the verb changed into its simple past tense form, that is went, and here today became that day. These many differences you find in the first statement. So here we find that there is change in the tense form. Second one, change in the pronoun. And third one, change in the time word. These many changes we find when we convert a sentence from its direct speech into indirect speech. First, change in the tense form. Simple present tense became simple past tense. Second one, change in the pronoun. See here, I stands for Sita, I became she, and here change in the time word. See here, today represents time, and today became that day. These are the main three changes that we find when we convert a sentence from direct speech into indirect speech. Now see the next example. Rama said, I am reading a book. What's the tense used here? This sentence is in present continuous. So here Rama said that is added here, quotation marks removed, and I refers to Rama, so I becomes he here. Now am reading is present continuous, it becomes past continuous, and it becomes was reading. Now a book, a book. So here, since there is no word to mention the time, you don't have that change, but the other two changes are here. One is change in the personal pronoun used and change in the tense form. So present continuous tense becomes past continuous tense in this sentence. Now see the third example. She said, Rashmi finished her homework. Now, what is the tense used? Here, this is already in past tense. This is in simple past tense. Now, simple past tense does not have a past form, so we have to use past perfect form. We have to use past perfect form. So, here, she, exactly the same, said, now linker that, Rashmi remains the same, and finished becomes had finished. See the third sentence here. She said, Rashmi finished her homework. See here, if you observe the tense used, the sentence is already in past tense, simple past tense. Rashmi finished her homework. Now, simple past tense has to be converted into past perfect. So, here she said that Rashmi had finished her homework. Okay. So, a sentence in simple past gets converted to a sentence in past perfect. So, there is a change in the tense observed here, and there is no pronoun used in the reported clause. So, these two rules not applicable here in this sentence. See the sentence here. He said to me, "We have washed the car." Now, this sentence is in present perfect form. The tense is present perfect. So, how does it change? The present perfect sentence gets converted into past perfect sentence. See here, he told me that they had washed the car. What are the changes that you observe here? He remains the same. Now here there is the inclusion of the object. He said to me. In the previous examples, I had not used an object. The indirect object was not there. And here I have included that. Whom does he speak to? He speaks to me. So I have included that. So when you have the indirect object, instead of say, you can use another reporting verb, tell. So since it is said, it becomes told. Now, one point that you have to remember here is that when you use told, definitely there should be the person to whom the subject speaks to. So here, he told me that. Now, we, the pronoun gets changed into they. Now, have washed becomes had washed. And again, the quotation marks are removed. Now, see the next sentence. Tom said to Tina, "I was teaching grammar yesterday." Now, what is the tense used here? The tense used is past continuous. See, past continuous, it's already in past. So, past continuous tense gets converted into past perfect continuous. Now, let us see here the changes. Tom said to Tina becomes told Tina. And remember, after told, no need to use to. This said to, this term becomes told. So, Tom told Tina, then linker that. I becomes he, was teaching gets converted into had been teaching. Past perfect continuous form. Now, grammar same, yesterday. There is the inclusion of time here, yesterday, and yesterday gets converted into the previous day. So, the sentence, when it is changed into reported speech, it becomes Tom told Tina that he had been teaching grammar the previous day or the day before. You can use either the previous day or the day before for yesterday. So, we have seen some examples where we convert sentences from direct speech into indirect speech. Now, remember one thing. See, in the example, she said, "I play football." It gets converted like this. She said that she played football. In formal context, if you are reporting this sentence in an informal way, in an informal context, you can also say like this. She said she played football. You can omit this word, that, this linker, that. But when you do it formally, especially when you do it in your examination paper, definitely you have to use this word, that. So, these are some examples that we have taken with respect to statements. We have different kinds of sentences. I have only given you some examples with respect to statements. general statements. Now let's see how tenses get changed in reported speech. See, simple present tense becomes simple past tense. Present perfect tense becomes past perfect tense. Simple past tense becomes past perfect. See, understand this concept very clearly. Present perfect as well as simple past tense, they get converted into past perfect. And present continuous sentences, they become past continuous sentences. Now, past continuous sentences become past perfect continuous. Now, this change in the shift has got a name. We call it as backshift. Okay, backshifting the tense. This is an important thing that we do when we convert a sentence from direct speech into indirect speech. One is change in the tense, that is backshifting the tense. Second one is change in the pronouns and possessive adjectives. Third one is change in the words related to that of time and place. As in the example, Rashmi said, I live in MYSURU here. And this can be reported like this. Rashmi said that she lived in MYSURU there. So here becomes there. Here is a term that refers to the place and that becomes there. Now there are a few changes that happen. There are a few common words with respect to time and place that change when you convert a sentence from direct speech into indirect speech. Here is the list of those words. This becomes that. These becomes those. Now becomes then. As in the example, I teach you now. The teacher said, I teach you now. And it can be reported in this way. The teacher said that she taught her then. She taught her then. Now becomes then. And here becomes there. Hence remains the same. Tomorrow becomes the following day or the day after. Yesterday becomes the previous day or the day before. Today becomes that day. Ago becomes before. Thus becomes so. There are a lot many words that can be added here. These are some common words. Now see this example. She said, do not jump. And how do you convert this? See, do not jump. It becomes not to jump. So the sentence is, she warned him not to jump. See, here I have included the person spoken to. So you can also state like this, she told him not to jump or she warned him not to jump. So apart from say and tell, if it is an advice, you can use the word advised. If it is a warning, you can use the word warned. If it is a command or order, you can use the word commanded, ordered, etc. Generally, we use two reporting verbs, that is said and told in past tense forms with respect to statements. Now let us see how interrogative sentences or questions can be converted. See the first example. Ravi said to him, where do you go? It's a question. There is a question mark at the end and it is in quotation marks, direct speech. And see here, Ravi asked him. Since it is a question, in order to give the listener an idea that it's a question, we use the reporting verb asked here. Instead of said or told, if it is a question, it's better to use the term asked or inquired, etc. So Ravi asked him. Him is the person spoken to. Now, there is no extra linker here. When you convert an interrogative sentence, when you convert a question, the question word, WH question word becomes the linker here. There is no extra word required. We don't use that here in questions. So, where is used as a linker. And now see here, do you go is seen in the sentence in direct speech. Now, do, go. This is the verb. Which is the tense used? The tense used is simple present tense. So, do, go, the sentence is in simple present tense. And what is the past tense form of the verb? Go, it is went. So, where he went. Now, you will find here the auxiliary verb do comes first and then comes the subject. But when you convert that, first comes the subject and then comes the verb. So, there is an interchange of subject and verb. Here, it is a question. Here, you are converting into a statement. We understand that it is a question from the word used here, asked. So, Ravi said to him, where do you go? When you convert that, it becomes Ravi asked him where he went. Remember this rule when you convert questions. First comes the subject and then comes the verb. Because we are converting a question into statement. See the next example. She said to her friend, why are you crying? Here, she said to becomes asked. The reporting verb is asked because it is a question. She asked her friend, which is a question word. The question word here is why. So, we have used why as the linker. She asked her friend why. Now, you, the subject gets converted, the pronoun you gets converted to she, and that is used first. And now, are crying represents the verb, and what is the tense used? It is present continuous. Present continuous tense gets converted into past continuous. So, are crying becomes was crying. Okay. So, she asked her friend why she was crying. Verb part comes together in statements. Now see the next example. The student said to the teacher, how will we go? Here the student said to becomes asked the teacher, which is a question word. The question word is how in this sentence. So the word is used after teacher. The student asked the teacher how, and which is the subject here? We. We, the pronoun gets converted to they. So, we becomes they here, and now will go. Will is the present tense form and the past tense of will is would. You have to convert everything. I told you there is the rule that in indirect speech you have to do backshifting of the tense. Tense becomes its past tense. So, here will go becomes would go. The verb part comes together. The student asked the teacher how they would go. And an important point to notice here is that when you convert a question, there is this interchange of subject and verb. You are converting a question to a statement and giving the listener an idea that it's a question by using the word asked. So, there is the interchange. In all the examples you would find these verb and subject interchanged. Now, let us see another kind of question. There are two kinds of questions. One is WH questions and the other one is yes or no questions. So, let us see how we can convert yes or no questions. See the first example. She said to me, will you support me? She asked me. Now see, you have removed the quotation marks. You need to add a linker. It's a yes or no question. There is no WH word over there. So in the case of yes or no questions, you have to include a linker, and that is if or whether. No need to use both the terms at the same time. Either you can use if or you can use whether. I have just written it for your understanding, and think about the spelling of whether. It is WHETHER. So this is used as a linker to connect these two parts of the sentence. She asked me if or whether. Now, which is the subject here? I. You gets converted into I because I am the one spoken to. So, you becomes I here. Now, will, past tense, would. So, will support becomes would support, and here it is she. So, I use her. Just to see the changes here, she asked me. It's a question, yes or no question. So, we have to use us. She asked me if I would support her. Interchange of subject and verb is applicable here also. See the next. Shyam said to him, do you play with me? Shyam is the speaker. Shyam asked him if he. Now, do play is here, it is in simple present tense. So, as per the rule, do play, its past tense is played. So, it becomes if or whether he played with him. Now, when we look at the meaning of the sentence, we can also go for this option, would play with him. So, see, there are some exceptions depending on the meaning of the statement. We can make some adjustments here. So, Shyam asked him if he played with him or if he would play with him. Now, here I said to him, can you do me a favor? See here, I asked him if is the linker, he. Now, past tense of can is could, if he could. Now, do me a favor. I have used me there because it is I who speaks there. Okay. Sometimes when we have more than one pronoun, we may have slight confusions. We have to just look at those words and see which pronoun refers to whom. So, here I asked him if he could do me a favor because I am the speaker. So, these are some examples for converting yes or no questions from direct speech into indirect speech. So, students, we have seen statements, we have also converted some questions, the two WH questions as well as yes or no questions. In the next class, we will see exclamations and imperative sentences, and we'll do a few examples, exercises from your textbook. Thank you.